Good evening everyone. This is your host Hiteshi from Guideias. A very warm welcome to you all to this wonderful evening. It's been a while since we have interacted, so I really hope you all are doing great. So today we have with us someone whose consistency, determination, perseverance, hard work and spark in his eyes will motivate you to bits. His passion for the khaki vardi was so strong that he finally made it into UPSC in the very last chance, that is 6th attempt. He was eligible for IAS but chose to serve the nation by being an IPS. So let's connect with this incredible personality, IPS K.VIJAY Shankar sir, to know his detailed strategy and experiences. Hey, welcome to Guideias.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much for having me. It's the pleasure's all mine.
It's a pleasure, sir. And firstly, I want to say it's a privilege and pleasure to see you in uniform. It actually makes us very proud.
Thank you very much.
So before we begin with the questions, let me acquaint the viewers with your journey so far. So guys, sir is currently working as an ASP in Jharkhand. He's an engineer by graduation. He has served as a former assistant commandant in BSF, but he decided to quit BSF in 2015 to prepare for civil services, which he eventually cracked in his 6th attempt in 2017. So yeah, here he is with us to guide us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Let's go on.
Yeah, sir. So the very first question, when did you actually think of going for UPSC and what was the motivation behind that?
Okay, I wanted to become an IPS officer for as long as I can remember, ever since I was a little child, and that's the only thing that I wanted to do. I grew up watching my father, who was an IPS officer as well. My father was an IPS officer of the 87 batch, born on the Haryana cadre. So I grew up watching him, and he always was my hero. He still is my hero. So there was nothing else that I wanted to do. So being in the IPS was the only thing, and then it kind of runs in the family. My grandfather was in the police, my great grandfather was in the army, my younger brother is in the police as well. So it kind of runs in the family. It's not like I had much of a choice.
So you maintain the legacy actually.
Yeah, there's nothing else that I'd rather do.
And that's really great, sir.
Thank you.
The next one. As we know that you were in BSF back then, but then you decided to quit, which in itself is a very major decision and involves a bit of risk also. Because you know, at the end of the day, you never know that you'll be able to clear UPSC or not. So at that time, was there any mental pressure, parental pressure or societal pressure you suffered?
I was lucky in that manner because my parents were very supportive of my dream, and whatever I held close to my heart, they still are very supportive for that matter. And I went and joined the BSF because I couldn't stay away from the uniform. I thought it was I graduated in 2012, so I felt like I have to, like, the sooner you get to wear the uniform, the better. So that's what I thought initially, and then I joined the BSF. I had taken the mains in 2012, in 2013, and 2014, and then I joined the BSF after that. And I didn't make it that time. So I thought the BSF is an amazing organization. There's nothing that you can complain about there. It is a great organization. They're doing one of the toughest jobs in the world, for that matter. And they're deployed in areas where where getting water to drink is a luxury. That's the kind of terrain to work in. So I was really proud to be associated with an organization like that. But then somewhere in the back of my head, I still wanted to be in the civilian police, being able to solve public grievances, getting to interact with the public on a day-to-day basis. And that was something that I found lacking in the border security force. So I thought I wouldn't be able to do justice to the job. So I decided to quit that year in 2015. So that's how I came about to that decision. And then I told my father, Papa, I'm quitting. I don't want to be here. And my father was okay. If you think it's the right thing to do, go on. We're here with you. So that's what it is.
Okay, sir. The next one, as you have given 6 attempts, which I would say is truly an achievement, because studying UPSC, the entire syllabus for 6 consecutive years, it's like playing with your mind, actually. So, how did you actually keep your calm throughout this? Because generally aspirants get demotivated and leave it.
Okay. I think to answer this question, like some people I think are too dumb to quit. I don't know. I didn't understand failure. I never was a really good student to begin with. I always was average at best, and failure wasn't something new to me. So I think the upside of that is it doesn't affect you as much as it affects people who've been successful all throughout. I wasn't like an outstanding student when I was in school or in college. So failure was part and parcel of the game. But like you said, failing consecutively for 5 years in a row, it does take a toll. You start questioning yourself at times. You start wondering if you did the right thing. But I don't know if you've heard of this person called Conor McGregor. He fights. He's a wrestler. He's a UFC mixed martial artist, and he fights in the UFC championship. And there's this quote of his that kept me really motivated when I felt a little. You do have your phases when you felt a little down. And there was this quote of his. I could read it out if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah. So just give me a minute. Okay, so this is how it goes. He actually kind of rose from the ashes. He's an Irishman by birth, and he overcame really challenging circumstances to get to where he is today. He's one of the best mixed martial artists on the planet today, and he says that there's no talent here. This is hard work. This is an obsession. Talent does not exist. We're all equals as human beings. You could be anyone if you put in the time. You will reach the top, and that's that. I'm not talented. I'm obsessed. So at the end of the day, I figured that being obsessed is what you need to be. So obsessed I was, and that I know. So I think ultimately that's what helped. It was about being obsessed. It's about you. I also told myself that you only need to be successful once. You could maybe fail 5 times, 6 times. You need to get through just once. If you were to give in to the pressure and say it's okay, this is not for me, you will live the rest of your life rejecting the fact that you're not an IPS officer. Whenever you see someone in uniform, you feel bad, and that's something that's really hard to deal with. So I thought I'd rather go at it again than quit.
That's really inspiring, sir. And thank you for sharing that quote.
Thank you very much.
And I also want to thank Ankita Sharma ma'am for joining with us.
Just, tell Ankita I said hello, wish her happy Valentine's Day for me too.
So the next one,
You better.
we want to
Yes.
know the changes that you adopted in your preparation or strategy in the 6th attempt in comparison to the very first attempt.
Okay. The only thing with attempts you get wiser, for better or for worse. You understand what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. And through the course of 5 years of my preparation, I understood what I was doing extra that wasn't necessary, and what I wasn't doing that had to be done to be able to get through. And during the mains in 2013, I did not answer like 120 marks worth of questions through the mains, and that proved to be a major setback. I missed out by 18 marks that year, and I realized this is not done at all. If you want to make it, you can't imagine like not answering questions because the competition is so high. And ultimately the final list, if you notice, you'll find that people go ahead by 10 ranks with just 1 mark. People go down by 10 ranks with just 1 mark. It means the difference between getting into the service of your choice or not. Makes the difference between getting into the list or not. Where every mark counts so much, you can't afford to not answer questions. And that was something I realized after getting 2 names. So I made it a point, I told myself that I will not walk out of the examination hall without answering every question that is on the paper. And before that, what I used to think was, it's okay to just revise and just think through answers in your head and not write them down on paper. That's also kind of because I was lazy. I wouldn't listen to people who told me to start taking more tests. So that cost me another couple of years. And then I finally realized you actually have to put pen to paper. There's no reason for that. You can make answers up in your head, but when you're putting it down on paper, it will never be the same. So I wrote as many answers as I could during my 6th attempt. And there's no replacement for putting pen to paper. It is hard work, it takes time, it's time consuming, it's draining, yes. But the returns that it will give you is beyond comparison. That's the only thing, those are the 2 things that I changed in my 6th attempt. I made sure that I will not walk out of the examination hall without answering every question. And number 2, I wrote down every answer, as many answers as I could. And I had a fixed template in my mind. No matter what the question is, this is how it will begin. There will be an introduction, there will be certain facts. There will be these aspects that will be covered in the body of the question. And then there will be a certain conclusion. No matter what the question is, no matter how it is worded, this is how it will be. So I had a fixed template in my mind, and I had written answers so many times that it came to me naturally with this muscle memory. I didn't have to think so much then. So that was something that helped. That were 2 things that I'd say that I changed in the last attempt.
So basically, yeah, it was the promise you made to yourself that helped you.
Ultimately, I think yes. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, sir. The next one, our audience wants to know that since you were eligible for IAS, but then you chose to go for IPS. So what was the reason behind that?
I'd say my batch holds a distinction for that. There were about 10, 12 of us who were eligible for the IAS in our batch. No, not 10, 8 to 10, I think. But there were 10, 12 officers in my batch who were IPS officers by choice, who filled an IPS first. As for me, I couldn't think of myself elsewhere. The charm that the uniform holds and the amount of respect that it commands, the difference that you're able to make with every person that you meet. It is a little challenging, yes. You don't get to spend as much time with your family. You don't get to spend time with friends. You miss out on your social commitments. You don't get to spend time on yourself. But the amount of satisfaction that you derive from being in the police, I don't think anything else will be able to give me. When my friends used to ask me about filling in the IAS, I'd say, I mean, no disrespect to the IAS. It's an amazing service. There's so much you can do to the society in the IAS. But I always used to tell them, if I'm taking the civil services, it's for becoming an IPS officer. There's no other service that I'd rather do. And ultimately, it's about the challenges that it gives you, the amount of the number of people that come to you with problems, and you are the beginning and the end of law enforcement in districts that don't even have access to electricity. You get to work in areas that are so backward. You are the be all and end all of everything. And for people like that, you can make a difference with just one decision of yours. So the ability to impact people's lives like that, and the challenges that the job throws at you every single day. This job is so fascinating. You will get to meet the worst person that you've met, the worst person that you've heard of. Maybe some rapist who's raped maybe a 6-month-old child. You'll get to meet that guy of certain day. End of the day, you will be meeting the chief minister and debriefing him about something else. So the way that the job forces you or makes you capable of molding yourself to interact with every section of society. And that is something that I think no other job offers to you. And given 100 more chances, I'd still come back to be an IPS officer. There's nothing else that I'd rather do. I actually can't believe I get to. I'm paid to do this.
So that means policing was in your blood and bones.
Yeah, you could put it that way. That would be a nicer way of putting it. Yeah.
Okay, sir. The next one, like prelims 2021 is on 27th June, which means around 133 to 135 days are left. So, what should be the strategy for prelims according to you at this point of time? And please share with us the strategy you used for prelims.
130 days is approximately 4 months and 10 odd days. So that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So things right, I suggest taking as many tests as you can, like mock tests. I'd suggest that you take comprehensive tests rather than sectional tests, because UPSC looks for someone who is able to comprehensively, who has a general knowledge about everything that's going on, who's able to basically understand what every little thing is about, and not go into the depths of everything. They want someone who can understand what the basic structure of any issue is. That's the kind of person they're looking for. If you were the government, you just think of the kind of officer you'd want to recruit. So that's the kind of person that they expect you to be. So try to take as many comprehensive tests as you can, and do not be stuck with taking sectional tests. People get upset because they're not able to score 120 out of 200 in, let's say, 120, 140 in tests that have something to do with history, where they will ask you what did Jahangir wear on a certain day. It doesn't matter. The UPSC expects you to know who Jahangir was, what his contribution to Indian history was, where he fell in the lineage of Mughals. That's all they expect you to know. So don't be too hard on yourself. Take comprehensive tests. Make sure you're able to answer 8 questions out of 10 satisfactorily, rather than being too focused on the 2 questions you weren't able to answer. So that matters a lot. And then be wise with the number of questions that you answer ultimately. I think negative marking is misunderstood by many people. If you were to use it the right way, it will work to your advantage. Let me just give you a small example. UPSC what's 1/3 negative marks, right? So let's assume you're answering 6 questions, and you have no clue what you're answering, but you're just answering 6 questions randomly. So there are 4 options per question, which means you have a 25% chance of getting a question right just like that. I mean, you'd have to have really bad luck for things to go otherwise. But just by this is just probability. This is chance that you get 25% of the questions right. So 25% of 6 is what? 1/2 questions, and you get 2 marks per question. And 2 into 1.5 is 3 marks. Okay, you get 1.5 questions right. You get the remaining 4.5. You get the remaining 4.5 wrong. You're about minus 0.66 for every question that you get wrong. Okay, so minus 0.66 into 4 is 2.4, where you'll be getting 3 marks by getting the 1.5 questions right. So 3 minus 2.4, you still stand to gain 0.66 marks. So I'd say that you should learn to use negative marking to your advantage. This is not to say that you randomly go about answering every question that you get. When you know for a fact that you will never be able to get this question right, you have no clue about any of the 4 options that are there, then you do good to not answer the question. But on the other hand, given an option, when you're able to make an educated guess, please take a chance. That's how I think you'll be able to use negative marking to your advantage. That's one thing you need to do. And another is I clear? Am I audible?
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. The reception is a little poor
No
here.
problem, sir.
Okay. So you need to be able to use negative marking to your advantage, and you need to start revising as much as you can. There's no point just flipping through books once and then thinking, okay, I'm done. Revise as many times as you can. I'd suggest reading the same book 4 times for a subject rather than reading 4 new books. Let's say we're talking about politics. Someone might come up to you and suggest Lakshmikant, someone might say D.D. Basu, someone might suggest Guideias. Rather than going through these 3 books once, I suggest going through one book 3 times. Be it Lakshmikant, be it the Barrett or D.D. Basu, whatever works for you. Revision is key. So I think you need to get that right. Revise as much as you can, take as many tests as you can, comprehensive tests as that, not sectional tests, and learn to use negative marking to your advantage. And finally, please go through last 5-6 years worth of UPSC's question papers. You will get. I used to think that it's a futile exercise, but when I made it initially, when CSAT was counted, I never paid much importance to the things because I was comfortable with mathematics and I always used to get to prelims. But after the CSAT was made qualifying, I failed 2 consecutive prelims in a row. I failed in 2016 and 2017. So that made me understand the importance of general studies and the importance of having things work to your advantage. You need to play to your strengths. You need to build on your strengths and try to minimize your weaknesses. And that's what you need to do. And that will happen only if you revise and take as many tests as you can. So you'll fail as many times as you can. So you won't do that when the exam actually happens. With every new test that you take, if you're able to learn just one new point, that will go a long way in the exam that you're taking. Because the prelims, as you might know, is very competitive. I've known friends who missed by 0.66 marks, by 0.2 marks, by 0.1 marks. And that's the difference between answering that one extra question that you thought you might take a chance on, or the question that you didn't answer because you thought this negative marking. That's where you need to know how to leverage things to your advantage. So I think it comes down to this 4 points. And be comfortable with the pen that you're using. It should just be an extension of it. These are small things, but on the day of the exam, you will realize that if you're not comfortable with the pen that you're using, filling in the circles becomes a big thing, especially when you're doing it repetitively. And you need to make sure that you're marking the right circle for the right option for the right question. In the pressure of the examination, you tend to mark bubbles above or below the question that you're actually trying to attempt. That means you're losing 0.66 straight away. You've lost. That should never happen. These are small things that people might not care about, but this does make a difference. And the sooner you learn to pay attention to that, the better it will be for you. So that's what it is. You revise as much as you can. You take as many comprehensive tests as you can. You work on your strengths, learn to use negative marking to your advantage. And please go through, I can't stress this enough, go through UPSC's question papers, last 5, 6, 8 years worth of question papers. I think that's about it. That about summarizes the must-do things. Whatever you do will be in addition to this. Anything less than this, I think, wouldn't be a good idea. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a detailed and perfect strategy and analysis.
This is just again what worked for me. This is by no means the panacea. This is not something that is the be all and end all of everything. This is just what worked for me. Feel free to tweak it for however you think it'll work to your strengths. But these are the basic things that the one needs to pay attention to, I think.
And they are surely going to help thousands of aspirants out there.
Thank you very much. I hope it does.
Also, in addition to prelims, should one prepare for mains and optional too at this point of time? Please tell us, sir.
It depends on how comfortable you are with the prelims. But either way, even if you're not comfortable, I think looking at the entire exam as as an extension of one examination is a better approach rather than looking at the first stage as prelims and then the mains and then the interview. That never helps much because you're restricting yourself even when you're prepared. Never do that. Just look at the entire process as the extension of one examination. Because what you're studying for the prelims, you'll have to study again for the mains. The only thing that will be that you study in addition to what you've been studying for the prelims is your option subject. You will let go of medieval history. So there's just minor changes. You will be studying ethics, integration, aptitude. That is something you wouldn't have done for the prelims.
Yes.
So this is just what you'll have to add to what you've done already. But otherwise, when you're studying history, you always think about, you try to analyze issues. You try to understand what the crux of the issue is. You try to understand why something happened a certain way and not any other way. If you're able to understand that, you might not be able to get to the direct answer in the prelims because it's a little fact-based. But ultimately, behind every question that might seem like it's based on facts, you will find that it has something to do with basic understanding of the subject at hand. So if you're able to understand the crux of the issue, you will be able to easily eliminate 2 or 3 options. 2 options is the least you'll be able to eliminate, and then you have a 50% chance of getting the right answer. So it's about maximizing chances. So always try to understand the crux of every issue. If you're able to understand that, even when you write your answers for the mains, you'll find that there's a lot of clarity in the answers that you're expressing, in the opinions that you're expressing. You will be able to convince the examiner much better than someone who's just writing off the bat. So that is an advantage that you will have if you were to look at the entire process as the extension of one exam rather than 2 or 3 separate stages.
Okay, sir. So the next one, please share with us some answer writing techniques you used to make it more efficient.
Okay. Okay, like I told you, this template that I had in mind.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so every question always had to start with a small introduction, no matter how small it was. It could be like a couple of lines or 2 or 3 lines, but restrict your introduction. Your introduction should just serve the purpose of being an introduction to the answer that is going to follow. Your introduction shouldn't be elaborate. You should just make the examiner understand that this is the issue you'll be focusing on. This is what the issue at hand is. Have a small 2 or 3 line introduction, and then go on. Try to pick as many. Try to paraphrase the questions when you're answering. Like let's say, what the government stand on the can affect the economy in the future. Let's assume this is what the question is. So you start off with 2 or 3 lines saying what the Kisan protest is about. And then the second part of the question is what effect this will have on the economy. So that should be your heading. Effect of the Kisan protest on the economy. And then you support you support the government's whatever the question says or you oppose it, whatever your point of view is. You elaborate on that in 2 or 3 points, and always try to make your answers lucid. Try to keep your sentences short. Try to keep them simple. There's no marks for fluffy language. It's about getting your ideas through. So please remember that there's no point in trying to show off your English speaking skills or English writing skills there. It's just about getting your ideas across to the examiner. So you do that, and then the next part of the question should be your answer should be. That's what I did at least. The next part of your answer will be the way forward or whatever. Try to paraphrase the question again. What the examiner expects you to answer. Try to get as many subheadings as you can from the question itself, and then try to elaborate on the question using points. I think that gets across your ideas rather than just the examiner. Your paper is not the only paper that the examiner is evaluating. We need to understand that. We need to make things as easy as we can for the examiner. So try and underline whatever you think is important. Try to keep your sentences short. Paraphrase the question. And always conclude, no matter what. You might think conclude is insignificant, but it gives a sense of closure. It makes the examiner understand that this answer ends here. It can be a small conclusion. It can just say, thus we briefly see what the Kisan protest is about. That's more than enough. That will suffice. But you make sure that there is a conclusion. And if you are making if you are drawing any diagram as part of the question, or if you want to include any other figure as part of the question, make sure you enclose it in a box, make sure it's labeled and it's neatly done. And then again, you don't have to change pens, you don't have to switch from pencil to pen or switch the color of your ink, doesn't matter. It's about getting your ideas through. Also, switching pencils, if you go to miss out on one question, that's 10 marks you're missing straight away. You use the same pen, just underline, label the diagram, make sure it just looks presentable. It doesn't have to be, you're not submitting a thesis for a postdoctorate here. So that's about it, right? So you start with a small introduction, paraphrase the questions, write in points, underline the important words. And if you are including a figure as part of your answer, if you're drawing a diagram, make sure it's labeled well, make sure it's enclosed in a box. And you don't have to switch pens, and no matter how significant it may seem to you, always end with a small conclusion. And
Thank you, sir.
Time and again, so this becomes part of your muscle memory. You don't have to think there once you get there. So this will be said. Every time you see a question, you'll get an introduction. You'll see this is what the body of my answer is going to be about. This is what my conclusion is going to be. So make it part of your muscle memory, but make sure this is what it is.
Thank you, sir, for such an honest and practical answer.
Thank you very much.
And the next one, sir, if we talk about the meaning of police in layman's words, so it's basically a very filmy one, कि मारो पीटो और जेल में डाल दो या कुछ भी ऐसा, which is not the case in reality. So, according to you, how's the ground reality different from what people usually think or expect?
The ground reality is very different. Once you become part of the police, you understand how. I mean, even me, for that matter, I used to look at police differently when I wasn't a part of the police. But once you're here, you understand that every little thing that happens, the police is the first responder in any given setup.
Yes.
If a child's dying, you're the first person to respond. If there's a pregnant woman who's unable to get to the hospital, you're the first person to respond. If there's a dacoit, you're the first person to respond. There's a robbery, you're the first person to respond. If there's a fire, you're the first person to respond. And the police has been quoted negatively, I would say. And that hasn't been doing much good. That's something that's disheartening. But the amount of challenges that the police overcome every single day. I've known of people who haven't been able to go meet their families in 1 year. When I was under training, I had an inspector with me who had a newborn child. He wasn't able to go meet his child ever since he was born. It had been 1 year since he wasn't able to see his newborn child. He just got to look at his photo. They're overworked, they're underpaid, they're under pressure all the time, under a lot of pressure. They don't get to go on vacation. They don't get to go spend time with their family. And the people expect the police to be. I mean, you don't think of the police when you're having a good time. You think of the police because you're in distress. And when you're in distress, you'd expect the people to be there the next moment. But we are resource starved. The police as a department is always wanting to funds. So we always do the best that we can. But after coming here, you understand the practicalities of policing. You understand that what sometimes you feel that the people expect unfair things to do. And the police is also the strong arm of the government, with the most visible part of the government. So we have to enforce the law. We're not paid to agree with the law. The laws aren't made by us. And people take offense at us for that. When we are enforcing the law, it's not that we're agreeing with the law. We are enforcing the law. That's that. We're paid to do that. It's a mandate to do that. And whatever the cost of that is, we have to do. And that's something that negatively affects the image of the police. And more often than not, we've seen that what starts off an issue between the public and the government ultimately ends up being an issue between the public and the police.
Yes, definitely.
Let's take this Kisan protest for that matter.
Yes,
The role of the police is to ensure that the law and order is always It isn't a compromise. Law and order is always good. That's what we're supposed to have.
Yes,
And
sir.
and it's a job to do what's necessary to ensure the prevalence of law and order. And this is essentially an issue between the public and the government. The government has framed a certain policy, the public isn't happy with that. The police is here to ensure that they're registering the protest in the most peaceful manner possible without disturbing law and order. That's
Yes,
what it is
sir.
supposed to be an ideal setup. But the people take things personally with the police. They think these people are stopping us from doing things. They show their anger on the police. The police is constrained in they're limited by the choices. There's not much that we can do under certain circumstances. So the police has done a commendable job. They've exercised a lot of discipline, but sometimes people tend to look at that as police weakness. That's never done. But ultimately, this is what it is. What starts off is something between the public and the government, or public and some other body, ultimately ends up being an issue between the public and the police, and that's something that's just happening. So those are things that you get to see when you're in the force firsthand.
Okay, sir. And I must say that policing is a 24 into 7 job
It
which
is.
actually consumes you.
No, it depends on how you look at it. It doesn't consume it. I'd say it rejuvenates me. It depends on how you want to look at it. Some people
Yeah, that depends.
feed off challenges. I think every challenge that comes across me, even if I have to leave, there are days when I haven't slept in 2 days straight, and I was still as happy as I was the first day to go serve the topic whenever challenge came up. It depends on what feeds you, what you feed on. If challenges feed you, every challenge is another opportunity. So
Yeah, it
it
pushes
doesn't
you
consume
beyond
you.
your
I
limits.
say it gives you an opportunity to work for the people. I don't think policing is consuming. It's reinvigorating, I'd say.
Okay, sir. Thank you. The next one. So you began your journey in 2012 and finally achieved your desire in 2017. So what was the weakest moment for you in this entire journey and how did you overcome it?
Um, okay. Initially, what happened was in 2012, like I told you, I never was a great student. So in 2012, I actually got through the prelims before I uh, had graduated from college. And I have an arrear then in college. So I was taking the mains and I applied for re-evaluation, and then I was waiting on the results, and then I took the mains. The first attempt was, I thought I'd done really well. And I was so confident about making it that I wasn't even considering applying the next time. I was that confident. But when the results, but my sister talked sense into me. She was saying, don't show stupid, फालतू मार्क्स हमने दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है. So go on apply. I said okay, and then I applied, and then first time, it didn't register that I didn't make it because I thought I'd given the exam the best that I could. So
Yeah.
that was the first time, and the second time, like I told you, I wasn't able to answer like 120 marks worth of questions, so I knew where it went wrong. But despite that, I missed by 18 marks, so that was kind of soothing. I mean, if you were able to answer all questions, you will be there eventually. And in 2014, what happened was I wasn't scoring really well with my option subjects. Initially, when I started taking the UPSC examination, in 2012, we had two option subjects. So I had sociology and public administration. And then the next attempt I'd taken sociology. In 2013, the pattern was changed, so we had just one option subject. So I stuck with sociology. And I didn't make it that time. So one of my friends suggested anthropology. So I went with anthropology for the attempt after that. That was an ill-planned attempt. I wasn't prepared enough to switch social. And then I went to the BSF, and then one of my friends was saying, "You're from Tamil Nadu, why don't you take Tamil literature?" That made sense to me. I said, okay. And then when I switched to Tamil literature, and I resigned quit from the BSF, I failed the prelims that year. I failed the prelims the next year. That was when I felt really. I think that has to be the lowest point in 2016. Taking two consecutive prelims in a row after taking 3 meetings consecutively, that was a little disheartening. Because that was when I was really sure I'd make it if I just got the opportunity to take one mains more. Because until then, mains it was like a cakewalk because CSOT was part of the prelims and it was I still am really comfortable with that field in mathematics. So until then, mains was a given. It was like the UPSC consists of two stages: the mains and the interview. The prelims was never considered at all, at least in my mind. But after that, when the pattern changed, it was made qualifying. It came as a huge blow that this wasn't counted for the final merit, at least for the prelims. And that came as a huge setback. In 2017, I felt really weak. That's when I thought, okay, ek mauka aur mil jata hai. Okay. So that's when I was confident. So not being able to make it that time, that affected me a lot. But then again, I came across another speech by Theodore Roosevelt. It's called Citizenship in the Republic. It's an amazing speech by Theodore Roosevelt, and there's this small part of it which I'd like to quote.
Sure, sir.
It goes like this. It says, and when you fail for so many times in a row, there are people that start questioning your decisions. People say you should have stayed back in the BSF. People say you think too much of yourself. Maybe you shouldn't have done whatever you did. And everyone around you starts questioning you. So and that's when I came across this speech. It goes this way. It says, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who actually is in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." So this is what Theodore Roosevelt said, and I thought it kind of made sense. I mean, at least if I'm going to spend myself, I thought I'd spend myself doing something I'm passionate about. So I was prepared to burn out for that. If that's what it took, that's what it took. So I didn't have any other thing that I rather wanted to do. So that came as a huge boost. And whenever it came, I read it. So that kept me going.
Okay, sir. So you have spent yourself in the worthy coast, that means.
That's what I used to tell myself. And I'm happy I told myself that.
That's really inspiring, sir.
Thank you very much.
The next one, sir, please share with us your interview experience. How does it feel within those four walls?
Okay. The UPSC interview is nothing like anything you've ever been through. I was interviewed by Basi Sir's board. He interviewed me, and I was the third person to go in. It still feels like yesterday. It's been 3.5 years now, but it still feels like yesterday. And when nothing prepares you for the questions that you're going to face. You're in the central hall, you're waiting to be questioned. Everyone who's around you has the same fear on their face. Some people are composed, but most people, you can see through most people. You can see the fear. You can see the anxiety. You keep using the washroom time and again, it doesn't help. And you don't know which board you're going to until the last moment. You're grouped in clusters. You're assigned to a certain board, but you don't know which board that is, because the person who goes in before you will be interviewed by the board and then he'll leave. He won't meet you again. So you won't know which board you're going to. That is another thing that adds to surprise. And it's okay to be scared, I'd say. If you don't accept that you're scared, you'll be able in a better position to face your fears. If you don't, it's okay to be scared. I think when you're going to some place where you think the next half an hour will be able to change the 35 years of your life, next 35 years of your life, I think that's a huge thing that's at stake, and it's okay to be afraid. And if you're able to accept that, if you're able to accept that you're going to be afraid, you'll be able to handle the challenges better. you'll be able to handle whatever they throw at you better. So that's what it was. I went in, and then first I gladly got to sit down. Then he sat and asked me why did you quit the BSF. So that's how the interview started, and then there were four other members, and then each person asked his or her behalf. I mean, his or her part of whatever they thought was worth of asking in my my profile. And some people were like, "Why do you want to come join the police after being in the BSF? Why did you quit? That's a uniform service as well. Like, how do you think you can contribute to the force better as an engineer?" Like whatever they thought was worthy of being asked. That's what it was. That's how it went, and the people in the board actually try to make you feel as comfortable as you can. They've been there. They've seen that. They've been part of public service for over 40, 45 years. They've been part of serving the public for longer than we've been around on this board. So they understand what you must be going through. They try to make sure that you're at ease. So long as you prove to yourself, so long as you stand for what the Constitution stands for, so long as you're confident about the answers that you give, I think you should be able to see through the interview comfortably. That's what I'd say it is.
Thank you, sir. Also, we want to know your experience at NPA, how hard and enriching it is.
NPA, I think it's an experience to be had. I think I had the time of my life at NPA. NPA is the best that can happen to anyone. I think I'd be lost for words if I were to talk about NPA, but it challenges you. It makes you a different person. It changes the way that you walk, the way that you talk, the way you interact with people. The amount of confidence that it brings into you is unparalleled. It's something that has to be experienced to be believed. Every day starts at around 5:15 with the morning roll call. You then go attend PT, have 1.5 hours worth of physical exercise. You come back, change, and go to the auditorium for basic. It's called the BCTC, Basic Course Training Complex. Am I clear? I think
Yes, sir. Yeah, but it's okay now.
Perfect. And then you change and you go to basic course training complex, and then you have your indoor sessions where you taught forensic science, penal code, the criminal procedure code, the evidence act, minor laws, local laws, special laws, forensics, and the amount of exposure that they give you is unparalleled. I think it's one of the best trainings that one can ever go. Also, just the amount of interaction that that you get to, and the bonds that you forge in the police academy are bonds that you forge for life. Because you put through the rigors together, you struggle together, you sweat together, you bleed together. So the bonds that you forge, you learn to make fun of hardships. You see that you're able to walk, you see that someone who's beside you is not able to walk either. So you crack a joke at each other, and then you get going. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what needs to be done needs to be done. So you learn to push your limits, you need to challenge yourself, you learn to challenge yourself, you redefine your limits. And I think NPA is there's no comparison for that. Whatever they say will never do justice to what NPA is. I'm sorry for the interruption. I think there's
No problem, sir.
or something. Yeah.
No worries. So, with this, we are done with the questions. But before we bid adieu, I want to tell our viewers that Guide IAS is bringing NCRT Foundation course, which will begin from 21st Feb and will focus on making your base stronger. So all the interested aspirants DM us, and you already know we are running all other courses related to the other UPSC material at very minimal cost. So go check our YouTube channel and Instagram. Thank you. And I must say
Thank you.
that it's a pleasure, sir. And I want to say that this was a very short virtual meet. But what I noticed was that you still carry the spark in your eyes for the police, and you do justice to your dream, that is the khaki worthy. And you really make us proud, sir.
Well, the khaki is something that's much bigger than all of us. I just hope I get to do something that's worthy of wearing the uniform. The khaki is something that's much bigger than all of us, and that's something you have to earn. And I hope I get there someday.
You are doing, sir, and you will. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sparing some time for us and guiding us through your wonderful experiences and personal opinions. Your success story will inspire thousands of students to take a step further and achieve their dreams against all odds. So thanks a lot, sir.
Thank, thank you very much. It's the least I can do, and I'm sorry the reception here is poor. The next time maybe you schedule something. I hope the reception is better. And thank you very much for
No
having me
worries,
once
sir.
again. It means a lot. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
It's a pleasure, sir. Thank you, sir. And a big thanks to our audience also for joining with us. Jai Hind, sir.